Right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Hello, wherever you are, whenever it is. My name is Paul. I'm also called Knickknack. I'm also Mr. Cuddy2977 on YouTube, and I do the daily teaser quiz. I've got to add some more jokes to my silly pile of jokes, and I do TV and movie reviews. This is the former rather than the latter. It's a review of an episode of TV. It is, in fact, a review of episode 4 of For All Mankind's 5th series, and it's a review of the episode called Open Source. This is what I saw and what I thought. Episode 4, Open Source, opens with the sight of Alex Baldwin, Sean Kaufman, going through mementos of his now-dead grandfather Ed, as his mother, Kelly, looks on. Alex is telling Kelly, Cynthia Wu, that Ed had read the Sand Pebbles to him when he was a child, when the pair are interrupted by Lily, Ruby Cruz, who's brought interesting news. The folk of Happy Valley have built a memorial to Ed, and Lily wanted the pair to see it. After the opening credits, the scene shifts back to Earth, where we find Avery A.J. Jarrett, granddaughter of Gilda Stevens and daughter of the troubled Danny Stevens, who's a Marine, being interviewed for membership of an elite lunar force and not enjoying the grooming process. The questions are a little too invasive for a daughter who was closer to her stepfather than to her biological father. Meanwhile, we see Alex start work at his new job at Helios's Martian offices, where, unknown to his new boss, Devaisha, Fiji, Alex is keen to prove himself and is curious about things he shouldn't be curious about. I'm wondering why a file that could be useful is hidden in an inaccessible part of the Helios systems. It's only once he's figured out how to access his immediate boss's computer that Alex is almost caught by Aleda Rosales, Coral Pena, whilst he's up to no good illicitly copying work files. Okay, usually at Dage I try and give you a few basic thoughts about the episode, but because I recognise the title, I thought I should try and explain the term, which is probably going to involve giving away the climax of the episode. You see, by the end of Open Source, Alex has stolen a file that tells us what Helios and Kuragin are planning to do with the people of Mars once the two companies have automated the iridium mining processes. They want to ship the population of Mars back to Earth. So Alex, in an effort to stop this, makes the plans public, makes it open source, in other words, available to anyone and everyone on Mars on their mobile phones. The phrase open source in this case is being used to describe what's called open source intelligence, information that is easily and readily available to the public. Although I first heard the term open source applied to software, to open source operating systems like Linux, browsers like Firefox, media players like VLC, stuff like that. Software with source code, actual text of a program that could be freely used and viewed by anyone who wanted to look at it, in other words. As trivial as it seems, I'm glad to have recognised the title and the term and how applicable it was to what turned out to be the climax of the episode. Right, I think there's one thing I could, indeed will tell you right here and now. This is a very enjoyable episode. It opens with sadness, but it shows us Alex taking positive action to improve himself and the lives of the people of Mars. But I see a fly in the proverbial ointment. And it's not necessarily anything the characters do, it's possibly something from the writers. At one point, we see Alex accessing his line manager's computer and copying incriminating data from it to whatever the show's equivalent of a USB stick is, right in front of an unknowing, possibly unsuspecting Aleda, I should add. But what got me is that Alex was in the Helios office after hours, trying to look keen. And it hit me after I finished watching the episode that the office Alex was in had a lot of Macs. Not an issue for me, I'm a bit of a fan. But what was an issue was that Alex's fellow workers had left work without logging out of their computers, nor having turned their computers off. wide open, in other words, to someone, a cleaner, a late staying office worker, to walk in and access any file on company systems. Now, from what I've understood of most workplaces, most offices, is that leaving a computer on and staying logged into a user account like that is a huge, huge security risk. A risk that could see the person taking it getting shown the front door the next day. Yes, it lets Alex steal the data needed to drive the plot, but from where I'm sitting, yes, it's a mistake that looks noticeably stupid and noticeably unrealistic. So, what did I make of this fourth episode of Open Source? I have to admit, despite my reservation about what for me was a big issue, I thoroughly enjoyed it. We're getting to see Aleida from Alex's point of view as a senior Helios figure to be wary of rather than the feisty young fighter she'd been in earlier series. We're introduced, or reintroduced, I should say, to a new version of semi-regular character Avery Jarrett. The way Inessa Asserson plays Avery reminds me both of Danny and Gordo Stevens, her character's father and grandfather. There's one scene where Avery visits Danielle Poole, driving a motorbike at breakneck speeds in a way that reminded me of Gordo Stevens' handling of a car in early parts of episode 1. I was sitting there watching this scene of her zooming around on a motorbike and thinking, yep, she's a Stevens. So the character is a good mix of writing, casting, and performer's abilities, and a very fast motorbike. We're getting to see both the human drama I expect from this fifth series, and in the shape of the big reveal at the end of the episode, we're getting the big political drama. About my only complaint, and this is the second time I've mentioned it, is the reason Alex was able to steal an important file. It was the result of stupidity, I think, on the writer's part, rather than any kind of stupid move on the character's part. They left the computers turned on and accounts logged into. It's a result not of the character's skill, but of potentially the writer's ignorance. Yes, I am going to be watching the 5th episode, Svoboda, next week, but yes, I'm going to be hoping no one quite makes the same sort of silly, bloody mistake. Right, with all of that said, done, dusted, and swept under the carpet, that is where I'm going to be leaving things for now. Or at least it's where I'm going to be leaving things till next Tuesday, when I'll be watching Svoboda, the next episode of For All Mankind. I will have my written and video reviews up by next Thursday. So until then, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Feel free to tip. And if you enjoy what I'm doing, feel free to come back and watch the next review. I will see you later. Take care, have fun, be good, and be seeing you.